What craniosacral is not, it's not massage where you're actively working the tissue. It's not chiropractic where they're manually adjusting different parts of your head and your back, your neck. What craniosacral is helping to bring balance back to the cerebral spinal fluid that runs up and down your spine, inside the spinal column. And what happens here is that there's a rhythm to your breath, there's a rhythm to your heartbeat, but there's also a rhythm to the craniosacral system. And it's that fluid balance that when things are off, you can feel it in different areas of the body. If I don't feel that rhythm and something's stuck, I start working up the line to see where it's directing me to work on. Where is this restriction? Is it something energetic that's stuck in that area? That's something that had happened to them in the past? Obviously, we got to address that because that one area could also be affecting everything up the line too.
Welcome back to the Daily Surrender. Today's conversation is with a beautiful woman that I first came to get to know as a client, Jen Ofstein. And what a gift it's been for me to stand witness to Jen's journey. I've had the privilege of guiding Jen through 2 freedom journeys, witnessing her really soften, regulate, and truly come home to herself in a way that is just unmistakable. It's sometimes quiet, the coming home to ourselves. It's not always this big monumentous thing, but for Jen, I'm standing witness to the ways that her own deeper inner work have been guiding her along her path as a practitioner, as a therapist. She is a healer. She is an amazingly gifted craniosacral therapist, and she's going to talk on the podcast here today about what craniosacral is. And she's a woman who has really surrendered her way into such deeper alignment with her divine self. Jen, as I just mentioned, is a craniosacral therapist whose work really centers around nervous system regulation in a very gentle, attuned way. What makes this conversation especially meaningful is how Jen's personal path has been. It's been through a lot of her own deeper inner child healing, much of which I've been blessed to stand witness to, that she has been guided on the path to working more and more with children in her practice. So through meeting her younger self with so much compassion, not avoiding going into the shadow parts of herself, that she's really been drawn again deeper into doing craniosacral work with younger and younger clients in such a loving and compassionate way, and really helping them regulate their nervous system early on in life and helping them to feel really safe in their bodies and in ways that many of us never experienced as children. So this episode is so much more than just talking about craniosacral work, although you will learn about it if it's something that you have never heard of or experienced. It's really an episode that highlights how surrendering the identities that we thought we had to live into and letting go of our grip of control and the timeline and the process helps us to regulate. It helps us to step more and more into the true essence of self. And as we do that, the path unfolds before us. We can see those stepping stones that God is laying out for us clearer and with so much more confidence and clarity. And as you'll hear in Jen's story, it's about coming home to the little girl within all of us who still longs to be safe. So if you've ever felt dysregulated or like your nervous system's running the show, or as if you've had to grieve the life that you thought you would have, I think this conversation will meet you really gently where you are. So let's dive in. Welcome to the podcast, Jen.
Hey, thanks for having me.
I'm so excited to have you. As I mentioned to the listeners, you and I met through a coaching relationship, and you came here and we've done some freedom journeys together. But before we get into any of that, I really want our listeners to know a little bit about you and your background and being a cranial sacral therapist today, where you're gaining more clarity than ever before on what that path looks like for you, your passion with working with children. Tell us a little bit about what even drew you into bodywork to begin with, because that's not your first career. That's like your second side hustle career, right?
Yeah, because I do technical stuff for my full time, but doing this brought me into doing the body work side of things. Was years ago, is before I went to massage school, probably about 2008. I met this massage therapist. It was my very first massage. I literally felt like I was going to walk into a wall. I was so relaxed afterwards. And I'm like, man, if I could make everybody feel this way, that would be such a gift. Right. So because of that, that kind of segued me into asking him more questions about, okay, well, what do I have to do this? Like, where did you go to school? How do I learn how to do body work? So I went down that road. It probably took me about 2 years to pull the trigger on that because that's just how it is for me in my human design. I wait to respond and I have to think and go from there. But
Mhm.
in
Very familiar
2010,
with that.
yeah. So in 2010, started massage school, took my time. So I still maintained my full time job, but they were really great about letting me go to school at nighttime. And I did Saturday, didn't have any relationships.
Mhm.
It was great. I had all the time in the world to dedicate to that. So
Mhm.
rather than going on and on about that, I finished school in 2012. I had some health issues that came up for me afterwards, which was interesting. So, kind of shifted and pivoted to focus a little bit on that. I Once I was done with massage school, went through all of that, it kind of gave me a little bit more of a perspective as far as my health journey a little bit. That,
Mhm.
fine doing massage, but I learned other modalities from that, functional medicine,
Mhm.
acupuncture. I was working with a friend from massage school who actually opened the door for me to learn, like, want to learn cranial sacral therapy. She was one of
Mm.
the reasons why I got into doing the cranial sacral work because of how profound it is. I love deep tissue work and I think it's great, but sometimes where massage can't get in, cranial
Mm.
sacral takes it to that next level. So, like when I was
Mm.
having knee issues, I would go to see them. And it literally felt like one time my knee was up against a radiator. And I was like, what is this magical stuff that you're doing? I have no idea what's going on, but this is great. But it's such subtle and gentle work that I'm like, all right, I could get into doing this. So I
Mhm.
took my first level of cranial sacral training. And at the time, the class was amazing. I wanted to do it where I was practicing massage at this health club, but none of my clients wanted that. All they knew was massage. So I'm like,
Right.
okay.
Right.
So it wasn't the space and time for me to start doing that.
Mm.
Now, let's fast forward. COVID happens. I shift
Mhm.
gears and I start doing home visits with my clients. They all came with
Mm.
me, started doing home visits with them, which was a blessing.
Mm.
I wasn't looking for it at the time. When things started reopening after COVID, I could have went back to the health club, but I decided to keep doing the home visit stuff. But I wasn't looking for it. One of the girls in my networking group, she's like, why don't you go check out this place? She's like, she's just opening up like a wellness sanctuary in this place in Rhode Island. And I'm like, okay, I'll go look and see what it's all about. And I looked and I went for a tour and I was talking to the person who I'm renting from and I saw the room that it was going to be the shared room for practitioners, one day a week I could
Mm.
pick. And I was like, oh my God. And I started crying. So I knew this was the place that I needed to be. So that was
Mm.
kind of my transition from doing the home visits. And I do it a couple days still, but to have a home base. And it really
Mm.
made me feel like I had a space to practice out of now.
Mm.
And
A space to practice that's really yours too, so you could fully express yourself, because practicing in the health club, I completely understand why your health club clients didn't want cranial sacral. And we'll explain in a minute to our listeners what cranial sacral even is if you've never experienced it, because they're so programmed to think deep tissue. We want deep tissue. We're working our muscles. We're sore. We're tight. Get in there, Jen. I don't know what you're doing there with that light touch. I don't even feel anything. And that's just awesome. That's awesome because you've been led along this path to really be able to individualize yourself. It's like express yourself as your unique self in the wellness center. Mm.
Yeah, yeah. And and I'm thankful, like all these things happen for a reason in life, right?
Yeah.
And I'm thankful it got me to this point of practicing here and meeting all these other amazing practitioners, like somebody who's a shamanic healing. I have a
Mm.
neighbor next to me who's a medium who I
Mm.
love. And it's just like I'm establishing all these like beautiful connections with all of these people who practice here. And it allows me to do something different. And people are so receptive of it here that I'm just like, geez, I'm like, this is what I've been missing out on.
Right, right, right. So in some ways, in many ways, actually, Jen, you had to get out of boxes. So when we're in a box, that box can confine us sometimes. So when you're in like the health, like you were in the health spa or the health fitness center box, people couldn't think beyond what they knew, but you're coming over to this wellness center and it's, hey, what are your unique individual divine gifts? Use them and bring them to the world freely. And so I assume that that has helped you to also step more and more into your own unique gifts and really make your body work and your energy work unique to you.
Oh yeah. 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 100%. It's my passion. Like this is my passion job. Like I love helping people. This is what I'm here to do is to help people.
Mhm.
Just like I've had people like yourself help me on my journey, my healing journey. And this last like 6 months has been such a profound thing for me and such movement that I'm just like, okay, what can I do? Like to keep moving forward on this journey but not rush the process either at the same time. And it's nice that as I'm going through my own healing journey, it kind of shines a light to help like everything that happened to me in life for happens for a reason, whether it was health issues like physical like injuries that I've had or something like emotional energetic stuff that comes up, right? It's been helping me a lot with the clients that I see that come into my space and on my table, and to create a safe environment for them is such it's such a moving thing for me. I feel honored to have people come in here where they feel safe enough to really have that emotional release that they've been longing for. Do you know what I mean?
Oh gosh, absolutely, Jen. Absolutely. And you just said something that really resonates about your own internal work. So this applies to all of us. The work that we do on ourselves, our own unique journey, all of the things that we've been brought to and through in this human experience becomes wisdom that we can share with other people. Sometimes the wisdom is shared in us further stepping into our unique gifts and bringing them to the world. Sometimes there's lessons and wisdom that we learn along our journey and the hard things that we're challenged with, and the things, again, that we get brought to, but yet through, where we can offer some guidance, we can offer advice. Sometimes it's just a really safe space that we're holding in confidence for someone else. And when your clients are coming to you and they're coming to you for the cranial sacral work here today, that's a very safe space for them to lay on your table and be really vulnerable. And you learning to surrender through all of the ways that you've surrendered over the years to be led to do what you do, and really surrendering into what you feel, as you said, very passionate about, even when other people don't understand, that holds energy for other people to do the same. Even when they don't know all of the details, but then they can come into your presence and they feel a different level of resonance because you've been practicing what you invite them to do themselves over and
Yeah.
over, right?
Oh yeah, and I love it. I feel so honored to help guide people on their journey, just like I've been guided myself, because it really helps their body just let go and release whatever is no longer serving them. And
Mm.
I'm so thankful for the cranial training I've taken so far, from the base courses to somato emotional release work, which is like dialoguing with people, while we're trying to work through some emotional stuff that might come up, it, it's
Mm,
it's giving me all the tools in the toolbox to help my clients get better and stay better.
mm,
And
mm,
working with kids, that was my next level of training. And I was like, oh, I can
mm,
embrace my inner child. And it was just like such a fun class. And to work with kids of different ages, because when you have an infant, they're just laying there. But then when you have a toddler, they're running around the room. I had like a 17-month-old that I was working on. And it was just funny because like running around the room. And I'm like, if I get a minute or two, that's cool, because
mm,
it's all still being worked. I mean, it's so much fun. I love that part of it.
mm. I would love for you to explain to us what cranial sacral is and how it's so unique and different. My first experience with it was back when my nephew was alive. And my nephew was born in 2010 and he was born perfectly healthy. And when he was a week old, he contracted a virus and it was called the human parkiovirus. It would have been a cold in anybody else, but in this little body with an underdeveloped immune system, it wreaked havoc on him really quickly. And he started seizing in my sister's arms and he ended up, when all was said and done, and he did end up living through the virus, which they at first weren't even sure he was going to live through it. He was left with 40% global brain damage. And so for the listeners who don't know what that is, it's all over. So 40% of his brain was damaged by he was, again, he was seizing in her arms. There was times where they thought he was dead. And so my sister proceeded to go look for any therapeutic support for Carter that could help give him quality of life. Allopathic medicine didn't offer anything. They actually had told her that he would be a vegetable, not come off of a feeding tube, was their prediction. He came off the feeding tube pretty quickly. He would be blind and deaf. He was not deaf. He did have cortical vision impairment. So she ended up going out to California and doing a therapy called, was the anot method, but that's neural movement therapy, which was really, really, really profound and helpful, where they're redirecting the neural pathways in his brain that's healthy, like taking the neural pathways that would have controlled certain functions in the body and the parts of his brain that were damaged, and redirecting so that the healthy parts of his brain would take over. It was really fascinating to see how it worked for him. And cranial sacral became a really, really supportive therapy for Carter throughout it, because he would get so tight, Jen. Like, and you're much more familiar with this than I even am. You would understand why, but his body would get really, really rigid. And my sister would do all of this work and body work with him and take him and do therapy. But the cranial sacral helped him to relax. It helped him to let go. It helped his muscles to loosen up. And my sister, because she was also momming and a caretaker, and it was so intense, my sister started doing it too, receiving cranial sacral on herself. And because of that, I started doing cranial sacral myself. And I can share more about my own experiences later, but it was really, really profound for me to witness it in my nephew, because you could see him. He couldn't talk, but he was so stiff. And then he would do what looked to be almost nothing, like just such gentle movement and touches. And you can just see his whole body let go and relax. And he'd get this big smile on his face. My sister might be really, really tight from anxiety. And you would see her and witness her let go and relax again from just such tiny, small movements. So that's been my experience witnessing and how I was introduced to cranial sacral 2010, so 16 years ago. How is that possible? Carter isn't here on this earth anymore, but he left me with an awareness of so many different modalities for supporting our overall health and wellness that were not mainstream. They were not offered to, at least me, in allopathic medicine. So please explain to us, like, cranial sacral to people who even might be skeptical or not understand even the energetic side. I know that that's something where people are like, "Oh, that's woo woo. I don't understand. I don't buy that." Even though we know everything is energy, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mhm.
So what craniosacral is not, it's not massage where you're actively working the tissue.
Yeah.
It's not chiropractic where they're manually adjusting different parts of your head and your back and your neck and all that stuff.
Mhm.
What craniosacral is helping to bring balance back to the cerebral spinal fluid that runs up and down your spine
Mm,
inside the spinal column. And what happens here is that there's a rhythm to your breath, there's a
mm,
rhythm to your heartbeat, but there's also a rhythm to the cranial sacral system.
mm,
And it's that fluid balance that when things are off, you can feel it in different areas of the body.
mm,
Now, I could be standing at somebody's feet, and if something's not moving, if I don't feel that rhythm and something's stuck, I start working up the line to see where
mm,
it's directing me to work on. Where is this restriction? Is it a soft tissue restriction? Is it something energetic that's stuck in that area that won't move? That's something that had happened to them in the past. Maybe they fell when they were a kid and they're holding that in their hip area. Well, obviously, we got to address that because that one area could also be affecting everything up the line too, where they're getting constant migraines. So when your pelvis isn't moving with your sphenoid, which is like this beautiful cross section of a butterfly in your cranium. If those two things aren't in rhythm, well, what do you think is going to happen? You're going to have dysfunction. You could have soft tissue dysfunction. You could have nerve issues. You could have gut issues. It's just there's so many things that could happen when things are off in the body. So, with cranial sacral, what we're trying to do is help the soft tissue release, but it's holding. It's gentle, light touch holding, no more than like 5 grams of weight, basically. And I'm just holding in, and your body's doing all the work. I'm facilitating, I'm helping, I'm
mm.
holding here. It's like I'm just allowing the body to move where it needs to go. Like, what do you need to do? Where do you need to go to have this happen?
I love, love, love that you, as the practitioner, you're holding and you're allowing your client's body to guide you because that body has innate wisdom.
Hmm.
Right? And so it's not about you and your agenda. It's really about the client and what their body needs and what their body is asking for. So what you're doing is you're like the antennae and
Yeah.
like the receptor, right? So you're hearing, you're feeling what it is that their body is asking for more of. Maybe it's less of, but you're really hearing. I can relate to that a lot. Although I don't do body work and energy work, I'm working with people and it's never about my agenda. And it's not about me saying, "Ooh, this is what we're going to come on in and do when I'm coaching." I'm listening very, very carefully. I'm actually feeling into the energy and the frequency of even the words that they're saying. So that's brilliant. I love that. That was just a little puzzle piece click for me right here. And being able to better understand what you're doing as the practitioner in cranial sacral. Um,
Yeah. And it's great. I love it. It's like I said, it's so different, but it's just so supportive of helping a person kind of come full circle.
so when you started stepping more and more into cranial sacral work with people and stepping away, you still do massage, but would you say that today you do more cranial than massage, or do you do a
I
hybrid?
do still, yeah, I still doing more massage because that's what people are familiar with. But
Yeah, yeah,
I do have massage clients that do like they like doing both. I have some people that like to do
yeah.
both because they get the
Hmm.
benefits of both.
Right.
Sometimes I suggested during a session saying, "Hey, maybe I feel like you could probably do a little bit of this. It's a little bit more gentle." I'm like, but we can sit here and get here, like if they're dealing with the sinus issues, migraines, those kind of things.
Yes, I love that. That actually makes you extra valuable as a practitioner. The woman that I see for cranial does a hybrid. And so she'll sit and she'll talk, what do you need? What do you think you need today? And most of the time I tell her, why don't you feel into what my body is needing if you think I need some massage work alongside the cranial? It's very interesting. Most of the time my body speaks and it just mostly wants cranial sacral. I was having an issue with my left elbow for a while, And as she's working with me, she's on my right hand doing this work. And she said it feels like your hand almost was twisted. And she's getting into some of the energy of, have you ever felt like constricted even in what comes through, like your hand writing, right? Words, communication. So she's doing this work, like untwisting. And as she's doing it, my left elbow, where I'm having the pain, starts like vibrating. I'm like, whoa, our body is just amazing. It's amazing.
Yep. Oh gosh. Yeah.
Mhm.
It honestly, like it just, I mean, there's no cookie cutter way of doing any of this stuff because everybody presents such unique things within their body. And it's like, I've had stuff that came up with like, I'm like, what's going on with your thyroid? What's going on with your gut? What's up with this organ? As I keep doing more of this work, it's allowing me to really get more deeply connected with people to really hone in and figure out where to go and to work. So I learned how to do work inside the mouth to work the cranial bones inside. And my friend who's a shamanic healer here, she's like,
Mhm.
I've never had work in the mouth before. And it was awesome because it can help with sinus issues. I mean, when your cranial bones aren't moving, obviously you could have other dysfunctions. They could have, maybe some numbness in their hand, but releasing some of these restrictions allows the nerve pathways to soften and work the way that they should. It's like more circulation that ends up happening too. So it's nice that like I said, with doing the body work, doing massage, and then blending some of it for people who aren't familiar with cranial, it has such huge benefits.
Mhm.
But with
Mhm.
doing like learning that second level of training that I had with doing the work in the mouth, that was when I had that prolific moment where I all of a sudden started feeling it. My friend's like, you got to ground yourself. But it had that prolific moment where I could feel it, where to go in them and what to work on. So, like, I had somebody who was having a hip issue, another person who I went right to their shoulder and they're like, how did you know I was having shoulder issues? And it's nice because
Mhm.
when you work with other practitioners in class, they're already open to receive.
Yeah.
So, it was such a great experience to have. And I'm just like, oh man, I'm like, that's what I'm feeling. I had no idea. But as a craniosacral therapist, like we were talking about before, when you come in, I'm always remaining in a neutral, grounded state. And I'm listening to your body and I'm letting your body tell me where we need to go. I'm not trying to drive control. I'm not doing that. I'm letting go. I'm listening to where we need to go for you.
Which takes surrender. We talk a lot here on the Daily Surrender about ego. And when the ego wants to run the show and surrendering. So it's like laying down the egoic mind and stepping out of it so that we're stepping into the place where like for instance for you, and I know that this is true for me, getting out of my head, getting out of like, oh, my agenda, or maybe worry that I'm not going to do it right or I'm not going to get it, and allowing myself to be a vessel. So for you, I imagine, Jen, that this has invited you to do a lot of surrendering yourself as you've leaned in more and more and more as a cranial sacral therapist.
Yeah, it definitely has. And it's really helped me kind of like understand myself more to help my
Mhm.
clients, especially working with the kids. Like I had this aha moment the other day about working with the kids is that I was so drawn to that. Not just obviously it was the fun and embracing the inner child, but it was because of doing my own journey sessions and self-discovery over this last half a year, we'll say right now, that I felt like my little girl self was like locked up in a cage.
Mhm.
And with being hyper vigilant as a child and always being the mediator growing up, well, what do you think that's going to happen with my nervous system? So it's like we attract what we want in life. So I have people, adults and kids that come in with these kind of things that are happening right now that they need to calm down their nervous system. They need a way to regulate to going from a sympathetic state to a parasympathetic state, fight and flight versus rest and digest. And it's such a cool thing when you can feel that it's almost like this fascial unwinding too that happens during a cranial session. Down low asked me, is my whole body moving? I was like, no, this is your soft tissue releasing right now. I'm like, you're
Mhm.
not lifting yourself up. I'm just following it along wherever it wants to go. We're just rolling with it. And They're like, I thought you were moving my head. I was like, no, no, no. That was your body doing all the movement. I'm just following along.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Oh, that's so beautiful. And I love how you're able to offer people support for their overall well-being, but for their nervous system. When people are in fight or flight, a lot of times they don't even realize how much they live in it, that there's this hypervigilance 24/7, and they don't know how to unstuck themselves. And we all need a cycle breaker where whatever it is that we bring on helps us to feel some level of relief so that we can get some footing underneath us and then maybe intentionally choose to do some more work on ourselves, or we choose whatever that action step, the next action step is going to be for ourselves. But when we're stuck in this endless loop of being in fight or flight, something like craniosacral can be so very beautiful. And then when you're working with children, which I know is something that you've really been leaning in more and more to, especially since you've done a lot of your own inner child work. Children don't know how to identify what it is that they need or what's going on under the surface. And some of them are carrying things that they picked up on in the womb, and or maybe they had a traumatic birth, or there was some early childhood trauma like my nephew, and they can't put words to that. So, cranial sacral sounds like it's a really beautiful way to support overall.
yeah. I had somebody explain to me that
Mm.
it felt like there was a root that was like very bound up. And they said it
Mm.
felt like you were basically unwinding it. I'm like, that's such a cool description to hear from a little one. Like I was like, wow. I'm like, how did you come up with those words?
Oh.
It was such a cool visual that they had that they shared with me. And I was like, yes, we want to keep doing more of that. And whatever
Mhm.
imagery you come up with, I'm like, share. It's witnessing these folks that I'm working on. And it's such a cool thing too, Jen, that when I did my pediatrics training for this, that it wasn't just a child we were working on. We're working on learning how to work on the family unit as well. So I might have one hand on the child and one hand on the adult too, and connecting everything all together. I didn't even know we could do this. I thought
Oh,
it was just the one person on the table and that's what it was. And when I did my pediatrics, I was like, I can do more than one person. That's awesome. So
yeah.
it's just helping reestablish that connection from child to parent to siblings too. So I
Mm.
was like, this is such an amazing skill to
Mm.
be able to hone in and put out there and offer.
Yes, and it's so needed. It's so needed in this world. I know for my sister, it was a gift. It was such a gift. And then she received it for her whole family, as I've shared. And after Carter passed away, she started a foundation called the Carter Foundation. And she had a podcast for a while. She had to put it all on hold because she does have other children and life is very, very busy for her. But her passion was educating parents about other modalities that are out there that can help support them and their children as they're going through challenges with neurodivergent children, children who've had different traumatic injuries. So the work that you're doing is so, so, so needed, Jen. I want to pivot a little bit because you mentioned doing your freedom journeys in the last 6 months of your life and how it's really grown you and helped you become even more and more self aware. And as a result, you're hearing and feeling into the ways that you're being divinely directed to work more and more and more with children. So in the freedom journeys, we've done two of them together, which has been such a blessing to stand witness to you, to stand witness to you and your own growth. I've watched you meet parts of yourself that were so tender and parts of yourself that were long ignored. Can you share with us what it was like for you to meet your little girl? It was inside your second journey that you had such a profound, beautiful experience of meeting her.
Yeah, it was Jen, it was surreal. When I saw my little girl, she was like, meeting with my shadow self. And
Mhm.
they walked through this door into this vast universe. And it was kind of like me breaking free. And once walking through that door, the little girl, I laugh because it's comical. She was running around back and forth. And then all of a sudden she was on a trampoline jumping up and down. I was like, oh yeah,
Mhm.
that's me when I have caffeine. That's
Mhm.
hilarious. So it's like, don't give me caffeine. I'm already at like 100 miles an hour is the way it is. But it was so funny because my little girl self felt like she could be free. She could be open. She didn't have to sit here and be the problem solver. She didn't have to be the mediator anymore. She's in a safe space where she can express herself. And for me, like I said, coming from my childhood, that's where my anxiety started. I had no idea where my anxiety started. And that was that pivotal moment, seeing that, being there with her, witnessing her, and seeing all of this, that I realized like that was where my anxiety had started. Cause I couldn't figure it out. I was kind of backtracking a little bit. And then it was kind of like, yeah, I was hyper vigilant as a kid, trying to
Mhm.
rectify situations and being the mediator. And then my nervous system's, shot, you know? So like I
Right,
roll
right.
go
Mhm.
ahead. Yeah.
Oh, I was gonna say that was your early wiring of your nervous system in
Oh,
childhood, and means for so many of us that becomes the early wiring of our nervous system to be hyper vigilant. And in your home, you were standing witness to conflict, and you took it on, your little girl took it on, that it was her job to be the peacemaker and the regulator of everyone's emotions, which had you in a constant hyper vigilant state. So of course, as an adult in midlife, you're still wired that way. And until we become aware of why we ever began that to begin with, we function in the normal waters that we swim in. And you were really able to see it, and have so much compassion for her, that little girl. And then as an adult, like, take her hand and
mhm.
begin to essentially rewire the nervous system based on truth, that you are loved, you don't need to perform, it is not your job to be the regulator of everybody, the peacemaker for everybody, the fixer of everybody,
Yeah,
right?
that was a lot. That was kind of where things like with the anxiety, but then my need for control because I don't like feeling that way. Never liked feeling that way. Feeling when things are out of control, when people are angry, really knowing and learning how to read a room. So I can feel what I feel when I practice. And here's the thing, I'm so thankful for going through what I did when I was younger because
Yep.
I feel so deeply energetically wise to know how to really read a room. But now that I see it, looking down and seeing this whole thing, and I'm just like, no, I appreciate going through these experiences because I wouldn't be the practitioner that I am today.
Jen, that right there, so powerful, so powerful. I want our listeners to, if you didn't catch what Jen just said, rewind this a little bit so that it really sinks in for all of us. Everything in our life, when we allow it to be, is for us. It's for our soul's growth and evolution. And what you just reflected on right there is that everything that you've been through has played a part in you being who you are. Your hypervigilance as a child and learning very early on how to read a room because you thought you had to, that has helped you to really hone in on your gifts that you use today in being very energetically sensitive. To be a cranial sacral therapist, you need to be very energetically sensitive. And what you did and you've been doing in your essentially shadow work and in understanding, where was that gift that you have of being a very sensitive individual? Where was it crossing over into shadow? And the more aware we are of ourselves and of our giftedness and our patterns and also our ego's sneaky ways, the more that we can catch when we're stepping out of the giftedness that comes from God, and we're stepping into the shadow self, the shadow part of it. So where we're taking on things that aren't ours to take on. We're feeling things energetically and we're absorbing them, and they're not ours to be absorbed. We can recognize and see from a distance, but taking it on, that's not what we're supposed to be doing. And in doing work that you're doing, because it's energy work. I mean, you're feeling in and you've got clients on your table on the regular. If you were to absorb all that you're noticing and feeling from them, it would kill you. I mean,
Yeah.
maybe not literally, but it's going to tank you. And something when you first came to me, you were struggling. There was like still gut issues that you were struggling with, and you're like, I can't do another protocol. I've done all the thing, like the detoxes and the gut protocols, and round and round and round I go. And the anxiety that came from the control, which control is rooted in fear, right? And but that anxiety was not doing your physical, mental, or emotional self any justice. So really getting clear on where you were in shadow and understanding where that came from has helped you to really empower yourself to put up healthier boundaries, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and it's a continual process, like, as far as healing and guiding and trying to kind of, get back in touch with myself, and it's just doing all the different things, but when I need it. I'm not sitting here, I gotta do this and I gotta do this. When I feel called to doing something, then I go. It's like if my
Mm,
body's saying this is what I need, I'm gonna go do it. I'm
mm,
listening more
mm.
versus trying to do all the things to band-aid everything. It's like, no, no, no more.
Right, right, which was that control, and then
Yeah.
again, rooted in fear, thinking you needed to, because that was also how your little girl found her validation, her worth, her reinforcement that she's good. And when you shifted away from needing to externally receive your validation, your worth, your goodness, and rooting yourself deeper and knowing you're validated, you're worthy, you are good because you are a creation of God, and you are created in God's image on purpose for a purpose that has helped you to really differentiate between being like you're coming from goodness, but you don't need to perform for your goodness in order to receive the goodness. And so many of us human beings, so many women really, really, really struggle with that. And you and I were certainly brought together for many, many reasons, because I have struggled with a lot of the things that you did. How how would you say today, Jen, that your nervous system has changed after doing that deep inner work in your journeys, and the work that continues, as you said, was never really done, but how have you noted your nervous system changing?
I feel like for me and my nervous system, I just feel like
Mhm,
I'm not letting things trigger me the way that they
mhm,
used to with
mhm,
certain life situations, family dynamic, friends. I've softened a lot. I'm not letting it really affect me the way that it had prior to doing these journey sessions, especially for the control side of things. Like there's like we'll say stressful life situation. If I have something going on with my family, and I'm like, well, wait, let's shift and pivot. I'm like, what's really happening here? After the first journey, I had a family barbecue and I walked into this situation and I'm just like, but why are you guys really mad? I'm like, what is really the issue here? And it was funny because I didn't know how I was going to feel going into their house. I'm like, oh God, what am I going to walk into? But it wasn't a bad thing. It was kind of like eye opening for me. So like that really helped me see stuff firsthand. After the first journey and that first experience.
So beautiful. What did your inner child need that she wasn't receiving that you're now able to give to her?
Just a sense of peace,
Mhm,
feeling more grounded and
mhm,
security.
mhm.
Mm. And it's okay. You don't have to know everything. You don't need to be in control of everything. And I feel like her and we dialogue. So like if there's something that kind of makes me anxiety, I kind of look down and she looks up at me and like we hold hands and that helps
Oh.
reground me.
Oh, Jen, that's so beautiful. So, as you're helping little Jen and you're looking down at her, and the two of you are holding hands, how has that been influencing how you show up with children in the work that you do?
Oh gosh, it helps me sympathize, understand, have a different viewpoint now, like on what
Mm,
the kids go through in life, or they haven't gone through, but like they just
yeah.
need to calm down their body. They
Mm,
need to kind of come back into connection with their body to recenter themselves because you're growing and you're learning as a child and you're reaching all of these like mile markers. You crawl, you walk, you're learning how to speak and to hold and to eat. And it's like you're learning all these things, but then also there's other outside stuff that's happening that could be affecting your nervous system. So like if you see like there's a loud noise, that could trigger their nervous system. Somebody's yelling at somebody else, that could trigger their nervous system. So it's amazing how everything just kind of comes back to calming down and recentering with them and just letting
mm.
them know that's okay, guys. Come back to yourself. This is all external noise.
Mm. How powerful that you get to teach this to children.
Yeah.
Because when we're helping support children and set them up at such a young age, they're gonna take that through for the rest of their life. What are you noticing in children's nervous systems today?
It's interesting. It's very well like anxiety, like how I felt, like very like this uneasy nervousness and just helping them, like letting them know it's okay. And then also dialoguing with them to find out what are their needs? What do you need to make you feel comfortable? What is it that's freaking you out? It's hard, obviously, like with infants, they might have latching issues. Maybe sleep disturbances, kids who have ADHD, but it all comes back to let's see where we're restricted. What do we need to calm down in the nervous system if that is what's being triggered? And then just going from there.
Yeah, our world is very noisy, it's very overstimulating, and I'm speaking from an adult's perspective. So for our children, our young ones in this world, I can only imagine how it's impacting them. And they come in and they're just bombarded, and oftentimes it's not even things that are directly trying to bombard them, but they're very sensitive little beings, and they watch, little eyes, little ears, right? And so they're picking up like little antenna from mom and dad and siblings and anybody who's has influence in their life. And people in general are more overstimulated, saturated with the noise of the world than ever before. So it's so important for us to care for them and care for them well. Why would you say that cranial sacral is something that's powerful for children?
Because it helps them as they're walking through this world, it's helping keep
Mm,
them balanced. It's helping keep them grounded and centered. And it helps release anything that they might be feeling within their body, we'll say soft tissue wise too. So they can still flow through this life and not have as many issues. It keeps them calm, and it regulates the nervous system. So it keeps them more in a
mm,
parasympathetic state. So
right,
it keeps them in more of a healthier state versus like fight or flight where, oh God, there's a lion running after me. Okay, that's fine. You can be in
mm.
sympathetic mode for that, but it's trying to keep them into more parasympathetic so they can do the day to day and not have dysfunctions in their body as they're growing.
Right. And I stood witness to that, as I shared earlier, with my nephew, because his he couldn't speak and his little body would get so rigid. And my sister didn't necessarily know exactly what was causing the rigidity, but we know that in one way or another, he was in a sympathetic dominant state. And then that's affecting different functions in the body. So being able to come on in and calm his nervous system, you could see it, visibly see it. His whole body would just start to relax, was also supporting those physiological functions like digestion, heart rate, body temperature, so many different things that get affected when we're in a state of fight or flight. How would cranial sacral support someone who's experienced trauma? I mean, people have all experienced trauma to some degree, but we have big T traumas and little T traumas too.
Yeah, that is actually interesting to help people who had traumas, whether it's like your physical fall or emotional, like you said,
Mm,
that we're working on helping release that emotion, helping them bring words to what they're feeling within their body. Like, so I'm holding here. what are you feeling? I'm not telling them how they're feeling. What are
Mhm,
you feeling in between my hands right now? All right, you're
mhm,
feeling warmth. Okay, what else is it making you feel? And kind of seeing, and as I'm dialoguing with them and we're
mhm,
getting deeper on what's really going on, because sometimes they're not willing to open up to talk right away about the trauma, or they don't even, maybe not even know what the trauma is that
mhm,
they've dealt with when maybe they were younger and they forgot about it. So we're kind of
mhm,
dialoguing through it. And sometimes, like, as we're dialoguing through that, that's when the
mhm,
release happens. That's
mhm,
when the body moves. And they're like, oh my gosh, I didn't know I was holding it there
mhm,
for so long. But I can feel it.
mhm,
Like it's feeling restricted and it's not moving. So what do we need to kind of talk about at that point? And it's not like that every session. I'm not talking to a person every session, but if I feel
mhm,
called to it, well,
mhm,
I might engage with them to see, what are you feeling? Is there a color to this? Okay. And then kind of work my way from there.
mm. So powerful. The mind and the body is so, so, so interconnected.
Oh, yeah. Oh,
Mhm,
100%. And it's just like I said, it's just amazing the movement you can get to when somebody does and is willing to open up just about everything. And then their body just starts to soften and let go. And I'm just like, I just witnessed this whole thing happen. I'm like, this is amazing. I'm glad I could be there to support you, to let you open up more, you know?
mhm, mhm. I imagine you've had people cry on your table as they're
Yeah.
having release.
Yeah. Oh, definitely. Yeah. I remember after I learned how to do the dialogue and the somatic emotional work, I was like, oh, this is going to be interesting. And I was nervous at first, but as I started
Yeah.
working with people at building the confidence and being there and seeing them, I think that's the big thing,
Mhm,
is like seeing them and witnessing them, being able to be more open. And
mhm,
and it's okay. It's okay to sit here and let go. Like, this is
mhm,
why we have this space here, is for you to let go, release what no longer
mhm,
serves you anymore. Let it go, up and
mhm.
out.
Let it go. Surrender it.
Yes. Yeah.
Oh
Let it
my
go.
goodness. Yeah, yeah. So here you are holding space for people and encouraging them to surrender and let go. What have you been invited to surrender and let go as you've continued on your own personal journey, right? Like, so your work, our work that we do on ourselves is always also work that we're able to bring to other people because there's a ripple as we're changing and we're regulating our own nervous system. Where is surrender really shown up most for you? And where is your continual invitation?
My continual invitation is surrendering when it comes to the control. That has always been like a long rooted thing for me. I can't control every situation. I can't sit here and tell this person, like, okay, I think you should take this supplement and do this and do that and go here and do this and go see this person. I have to just let it go and let it be. And if they know that I have like a wealth of knowledge, but
Yeah, you
I
do.
can't force it on somebody else. And I'm always trying to reel myself and just say, no, Jen, you can't, you can't do this. They have to want it for
Mhm.
themselves. I think that's the biggest thing, is they need to want it for themselves. I can't want it more for them than they need it for themselves.
Oh, absolutely. Amen to that. That's a life lesson for all of us as human beings, not just people who are working with others in the, healing space. We can't want for someone else, and it's not our job to want it more for someone else. It's not our job to fix for someone else, to do the work for someone else, because if we do that, we're actually getting in their way and we're getting in God's way. They need to feel the pain of sitting in their own suffering and make the decision that they're going to drop the resistance to it and do whatever it is that they're being invited to do. Take full radical responsibility. And that doesn't mean that they can't invite in others to support them on their journey. I would say that we all need support at different seasons of our lives on our journey. But even when we do invite in support, it's not because we're inviting someone in or hiring someone who is going to do the work for us ever. It's having somebody be a guide, holding that space energetically and a lot of love, love is the highest vibrating emotion, the highest frequency there is, and God is love. So when we're coming ourselves and we're really cognizant of coming ourselves from love, so we're fueling and filling ourselves up with what is available for us in endless amounts, infinite source, right? We're coming from that. We could feel that as a frequency in our own body. And then we can, therefore, and we're loving ourselves and we're caring well for ourselves. And we make sure we've got good energetic boundaries where we're not crossing over and trying to fix someone else and people please, all things that you and I have worked on. Then that energy we're doing for another person is we're able to give them that love and we're able to hold them in that love as a frequency. It's like a container. I've witnessed this in you so much. I've never been privileged to be on your table because you're in Rhode Island and I'm in Pennsylvania, and someday we will meet in person. I
Oh,
know
yeah.
that to be true. I know it to
Yeah.
be true. It will in divine timing. But I can stand witness, I can testify, I should say, to witnessing you soften and let go and soften and let go more and more and more of the big C word, the control. And in that, you are coming more and more into your own. And there's a confidence in you, and you're a lot more gentle in the way that you be. And I can imagine that when you bring that into your therapeutic session and you've got clients on the table, that that's something that they can also feel too, and that you're gifting that to them, which is so beautiful. And I'm not at all surprised that you're being drawn more and more and more to work with children as you've become really, really aware and familiar with your own little girl, your own inner child, and you're loving her well. And you're able to do that for others in real life, in real time, which is so beautiful. It's so beautiful, Jen.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm honored, honestly.
Mhm. Yeah, it is an honor, right? We get to be conduits in whatever it is that God is calling us to do, and that's what we are. It's we're a conduit, we're a vessel, and that takes a lot of self awareness. It takes surrender. It takes letting go.
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah.
it's
Yeah.
so beautiful. If someone who's listening to this feels maybe they're feeling dysregulated or anxious or disconnected from their little self, what would you want them to know?
That everything will be fine. Everything has a way
Mhm.
of working out. We're on our path for a reason. We meet people on this path for a reason that help us through these tough times. That's,
Mm.
yeah.
That's beautiful. Thank you so much for that, Jen. I know you're in Rhode Island. So, in the show notes, if anyone listening is in Rhode Island or an area close enough where you can go see Jen, I'll put her contact information in here so that you can go take a visit to her. But if you are not close to Jen in Rhode Island, Jen, where can people search for good craniosacral therapists?
I think they can search on the Upledger website for practitioners.
Okay.
So upledger.com, I'm pretty sure you can search for practitioners on that website. Yeah.
Okay, I'll put that in the show notes too so that people can look for that if that's something that they're feeling called to. So today was such a beautiful conversation, Jen. I really appreciate you coming on and sharing, sharing about yourself, sharing about your own journey, your own inner work that's been guiding you in this beautiful cranial sacral work that you're doing, and for educating all of us here. I hope for those of you who have listened, I hope that you can feel the softness in this conversation. Healing does not always look big and dramatic. Sometimes it's these little breakthrough moments that we have along the way. And in Jen's story, she shared even some of her breakthrough moments in stepping into massage and then actually doing the massage work and then getting called into cranial sacral work. And that it's just this dance between that and in her own inner work that then has been guiding her along the way to refining and working more and more with children. So for those of you listening, if you're on your own path of healing and wanting to be guided through this life, just know it's not always big fireworks. Sometimes it looks like a woman just quietly choosing to meet her younger self with compassion, to grab hands with her little girl and just love on her. And in doing so, it's this regulation that happens in our nervous system, one breath at a time. And sometimes it's surrendering what we think life should look like, right? And discovering what is unfolding for us, always for us. It's all for us. And it's helping us to step more and more into our divine alignment. So, Jen's journey is such a reflection of what we talk about here on the Daily Surrender over and over and over again. We talk about stopping fighting. And when we do, we soften. And Jen has talked about softening so much. We talk about when we listen, it helps us to hear where we're being invited to let go of control. And as we do it, the body begins to really exhale, and it's exhaling from a place of safety. And from that, we're living differently. So if this episode stirred something inside of you, especially around your own inner child, your own nervous system, or the patterns inside of you that are really still feeling like loud, know that you're not behind. If you're feeling it, that's your first divine tap on the shoulder. It's coming into your awareness, just like it was for Jen when Jen and I met each other. It is never too late to come home to yourself. We're always growing and evolving as long as we have air in our lungs. So if you're looking for a deeper space to explore themes like this, surrender, regulation, truth telling, healing, I want to invite you to join the waiting list for the Daily Surrender Circle. It's going to be a sacred sisterhood space for listeners for this podcast to gather more intimately. It's a place where iron will sharpen iron, and a place for you to process what's coming up and bubbling up inside of you and really rising so that we can support one another in our daily surrender, not just in theory, but in real life. So the link to join that waiting list is in the show notes. If your heart feels a nudge, just trust it. There's no commitment for joining the waiting list. As always, I thank you so much for being here. Thank you for doing your work, and thank you for having enough courage to soften. Until next time, my friends, keep surrendering. Thank you for joining me on the Daily Surrender. If today's episode spoke to you, I'd love to hear your reflections. Send me a message, share this with a friend, or leave a review. Or remember, true healing and freedom come when we let go, surrender, and trust that God's way is so much better than our way. Until next time, my friends, keep surrendering, keep rising, and keep walking in peace.